Morning, everybody. And you're muted. I think this is it for the meeting.
Really?
Yeah, I think we're down to 4 today.
Wow.
So, Debbie, whenever you want to get started, I guess we can.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Debbie.
Morning.
All right. So we don't have either Alan, is that right?
That's correct. Alan, and Farley.
Okay. All right, so I'll call us to order at 9:30 and ask for public comment. But I don't really see anybody else but us here. So I'm going to assume we have no public comment and move on to approval of the October 1st minutes. Any questions or concerns about the minutes?
Move
Nope.
approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm not seeing Barb yet. She may be just joining us now.
She's muted.
Yeah, there she is.
There you are.
My computer is acting up there for a minute.
Well, good morning. Happy election day, everyone.
Yeah.
I hope it's happy.
Yeah.
At least it will end soon.
At least it'll end. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, probably like in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Hopefully quicker than that.
Okay, let's do financial reports. I know they're not September and October. They're like
No,
July and August.
July and August. And we'll just look at August. So we
Okay.
had 182,840 in the bank. We had recorded the 25,000 from Paragon. If you look at the budget to actual, let me get to that. I think we got a little more property taxes. It's still showing 157,000. I think we got a bit more in September and nothing else really remarkable. So I would entertain questions.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the financial report?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 No opposition. Thank you. Old business and the preliminary budget.
Yeah, and I don't think it's much changed from what you saw the month before. And again, we will deal with this formally next month, but it should look very similar. I think I may have increased the property tax a little since I did see an increase in September, but I think I left it at the 187,000 level, and that's still just a wild guess. So we're still not able to get good numbers on what we ought to be collecting from the treasurers for some reason, but
And I see 177,600.
okay. That's yeah, I think I reduced it from what we thought we were going to get this year because the AV has gone down in the district by about 4 or 5%. So
5%.
yeah. So that's probably what you'll see next month in what we're going to finally adopt is what you're looking at right now.
And my assumption is that because of the Dillon and the car wash property sale to the city, assessed valuation may go up over, well, probably not.
No, because it's tax exempt. So yeah, and I'm not sure. I think we will see for the 25 collection is 24. And I can't remember when they bought
It's
it.
always in arrears. Yeah.
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 So it may be already off the tax rolls. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for Ann about the budget?
Just so FYI, everybody. So based on what we look at today, I'll make any final adjustments to the budget presentation that I have to give to city council, which is next week on the 12th, I think. So just an FYI, they don't approve it. They just, last year, I think they maybe just acknowledged it. And I don't think they even asked a question.
They didn't.
And even though we show every year an allocation of sales tax to cover the Holiday Inn Express sales tax payment, they didn't even make a comment on that last year. They didn't give us any money, but they didn't argue with it. They just kind of went, okay, fine, thanks. See you next year. Kind of what they do. So I'm not expecting much.
Well,
Okay.
I think we ought to expect something. At one of the presentations this summer, Councilman Shada accused us of not having a plan, and I responded that our budget was our plan and that we present it every year and they make no comments. And so I would think that perhaps they'll make comments this year or questions.
If that's the case, do you want us to be there, Jim, and not giving the presentation, but at least sitting at the microphone in case they do ask questions?
Yeah, that might be helpful because obviously I'm going to be doing it remotely.
Yeah.
So, at least, if Ann could be there to answer any more detailed questions, but I mean, this is pretty simple budget, really it is. And the only comment I would make is that with me leaving, I don't know that salary number is going to be good. I don't know what you're going to go negotiate with whoever replaces me. I would guess that it might be low, but I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, it's usually about double what we actually pay you. So I think it's sufficient.
Still safe.
Yeah.
That's what I think too. Even somebody getting up to speed about the job couldn't blow through 20 grand. Well, maybe they could. If we hired the wrong person, they could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just an FYI, and I know it's on the agenda, but I have reached out to Downtown Colorado Inc. To get good numbers for what executive directors are getting paid these days. And they actually sent out a survey to different URAs to see what they're looking at. And I'm sure it's going to be all over the place because some are city employees, some are independent contractors, some include benefits, some don't. So I'll see what they come back with here. Maybe we'll adjust that. But anyhow, just kind of FYI.
Okay. Good. And I'm assuming that you were planning on being at the budget presentation already anyway.
I will, attempt to. I've got a little surgery scheduled, but providing that goes well, I'll be there.
Okay. And I can definitely be there too, although I am working that day. So I won't be there until much before 6:30. But as I recall, we're always late on the agenda because they take they have a certain order and we've always been late on the agenda.
Right. Right.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll plan on being there. Any of the rest of you who can be there, that would be great. And we'll see what happens, see what we get. I'm assuming that our MOU doesn't change anything we're going to do for this budget presentation. I don't recall any language that remained in the MOU that we signed with the city that affects this part at all.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
No, because we're not asking them to approve any particular project at this point.
Right.
If we had a developer we were working with, and yeah, that would have an impact, but not right now. Everything's really pretty well spoken for.
Okay, good. All right, moving on then to new business, executive director recruitment. Jim, you should have an update for us about what you've learned from all the various parties.
Yeah, so reached out, like I said earlier, to Downtown Colorado Inc. they will run an ad for us, on they have their web page, and they have a section for, I think RFPs and also, employment. So they'll do that for us. The city will also, advertise for us, with CML. And maybe locally, I'm not quite sure how else they would do it. I'm gonna have Carol actually maybe be part of that, to see what we need to do as far as running local, ads. But that's what the city will do. They will not, however, and they will collect the applications if we want them to do that, which I think we should. They will not help at all with the evaluation. And they totally regard that as your job, and I think that's right. So I don't have any problem with that. But I will be working with their HR, director, to get this thing out on the street there, as well as like DCI. So I think those are the avenues I think that it'll get, extended to. And, I don't know, if you want to tweak this description at all, it's pretty much what I do. Exactly. And we obviously, I don't know what the timing you want to put on here. If you want to, change that. I was thinking it would probably be, I don't know, 3 weeks to 4 weeks for advertising. And then ask people to have back by then. I think that's kind of reasonable. And I think we ought to make it available to other consultants that might do it. I know John has made some, reached out to a few people he knows. So I think, that might be a viable avenue.
So Debbie, my question is, well, maybe I'm jumping the gun because we have to act or vote on it or discuss it, but at what point could we be discussing this with prospects? Or using, if we agree to the job description, that we could share it? I guess that's my question.
Yeah. I would say my own personal opinion is as soon as we approve it today, we can be generally discussing it with anyone to say
Okay.
this, we have approved this job description. We don't maybe know the timeline because that comes from City Hall, right? Whenever they can publish and get it out on the street, and then we can follow up with whatever marketing process we're going to do. So yeah, that's my opinion. What do the rest of you say?
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
I mean, I had a couple of people I thought about just sharing it, and I thought maybe what we might want to do as well, we can discuss this, but if we have a prospect and they have some questions about, what really does happen, can we refer them to Jim for discussion?
Before they respond?
Yes. I mean, if they just want to have a better understanding of how the job's performed.
I do have a question. So on the very, very top of this description, there's the salary. Do you want to remove that at this point and say negotiable, or how do you want to handle that?
Well, people are going to ask what it is, but I think your comment about negotiable seems reasonable. I mean, if we direct people towards you, they may ask you very specifically, how it's been paid or valued or whatever, but so, I mean, I don't think it should be a total secret because in the workplace now, when you are formally required to post jobs, you post salary.
Yes.
So, I don't want to just say it's a secret, but I think at the outset, maybe it could say negotiable and perhaps a range or something. Normally that's what you might put on a description.
Right.
I agree. I mean, I think that it is negotiable, number one, but I think that we have to have some number or range there so that we actually get some interest.
Right. you know, if they think it's, you know, negligible salary, you won't get any interest.
Right.
So,
Would it be appropriate to say, uh, either something like the minimum is $100 an hour because that's what Jim was making? But we're requesting that people name their price, or that we actually name a range and ask them to pin it down from there, what they expect it would be.
Yeah, I think we ought to list a number, obviously. I mean, I think 100 to 120, and then I think everybody knows it's negotiable. That's part of the process, so.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and maybe what you
Yeah.
want to do is, you know, do a lower range figure to a higher range figure, so you end up kind of where you're thinking as a midpoint, so like 80 to $100 an hour. And it already specifies that it's, you know, less than a full schedule, so people would understand, you know, that it's not a full-time expectation as
Right.
well.
I would think we'd put like 80 to 120.
120, 80 to 120 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm good with 80 to 120.
Okay, that's what I was thinking we would do.
And I can, if I hear anything different from DCI from their survey, I'll let everybody know, and we might want to change that if we're out of the ballpark completely. I don't know, but again, it's a part-time job.
Well, I think you're gonna have a, you know, a possible data point or two from that quote survey, but based on your comments, Jim, it is gonna be all over the place based on the variety of professionals that typically take on those duties or fill that job, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint. But it'll give us perhaps a point in time, so. But that gets back to the whole issue about negotiation. Anyway. So I would recommend we put 80 to 120.
what do
Okay,
the rest of
great.
you think about that?
And it could have a comma based on experience after it or something.
I agree.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then what's the blank, Jim, for IRS? What does that mean? Or what do you, oh, I see, that's 2 lines. That's 2 lines of one thing. The way it printed, it says FLSA and then the second line says IRS : so I got confused.
Oh, okay. Mine doesn't look like that.
Just
Okay.
the way it's printed on my printer, perhaps it broke that identifier into 2 lines, so. But I think it reads well, Jim.
Okay, well, good luck.
And just want to be sure, I'm reviewing this again. Does it talk about interactions with city council?
I think there's something about boards, commissions,
That, you know, people really understand that they've got to deal with our city council?
number 17, the general says answer questions from individual board members and city council as needed.
Well, but as far as there might be occasional appearance requirements as well. Has that happened, Debbie?
Absolutely.
So I think we should be specific about personal presentation as well. That would be the only thing I kept reading and seeing if anything really covered that, and I didn't think it did.
Okay.
Maybe that's a 0.18 just because you got everything iterated already.
Okay. So how do you want that to read?
Maybe, let's see, maybe something to the effect of may be required to present or respond in person to members of the Manitou Springs City Council or something of that effect. Do you have any preference, Debbie?
Yeah, I would, I mean, with Jim, we've actually had him not just prepare the annual budget, And whatever other issue we need to present to city council, but he has presented as well.
Right, so I think it has to say presentation or-
Yes,
On-
presentation to,
and respond to questions in person
yes.
required at city council meetings.
So maybe 17 gets modified to add that. Present,
I'd make it a separate item to be very clear that that's required.
yeah, otherwise this looks like a very administrative job. And it is actually more than that.
Mhm.
Right. So however you want to prepare in-person presentations and answer questions in the presence of the Manitou Springs City Council as it relates to URA matters. I'm just throwing stuff out. I think does that roll pretty well, Jim?
Yeah, I think I can make something.
Okay, but I'd make that a separate point. Debbie, I'd make it 18.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. And making it about any URA business. Because there are times when, Jim, when you've had to respond to presenting development agreements, presenting budgets, presenting on issues, the sales tax and other issues. There's a wide range of things that could happen. Not that we necessarily think they would happen, but we have to be prepared. We have to know that the person who's doing the work could do any of those things.
Okay. I'll make that revision, send that back out to everybody.
How about, and then one other item under management of approved urban renewal areas, that other major area of responsibility. I mean, you talk about, you've got listed field inspections, but I think we should have a point about interaction with local businesses. You know, making contact with our local business entities within our zone. Personal contacts.
That
So
almost
whether-
seems like a separate category.
Well, that's kind of in the management of approved areas. I mean, you're managing what goes on in the area, and part of that management is interfacing with local vendors and owners of properties within the confines of the Urban Renewal Authority. You know, that's how we would, you know, maybe talk up grants and see what their concerns are, and you know, if we need to help people market their properties, you know, that all that stuff we kind of do on the sideline. So I just throw that out for consideration,
Okay. Yeah.
which you've done. So, I mean, that the individual knows that they have to have some personal interaction with people in our area.
Okay, I can add a number 9 to that. Something of the order, how does this sound? Maintain contact with local businesses within the urban renewal area related to redevelopment and grant opportunities.
That sounds good.
And any viable concerns, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that would round it out, Jim.
Okay.
any other additions, edits to the job description? These are good additions, Barb. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, well, based on that, I'll make those revisions, send that out to you guys again, and then we'll just start the process.
Are you all confident that we could do the next revisions by email? Do an approval right now with the changes that we've discussed, and then Jim sends everything out by email and we give him a thumbs up or we have
Yes.
more questions or concerns?
Yes, I would recommend we vote on our amended suggestions being included in the job description that Jim has provided. And that we further would approve a final copy via email.
That's a motion. I'll second it.
Any further discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. And if we're going to do advertisement and all of the rest, Jim, I'm assuming you and Carol are gonna work on that part together?
Yeah, and I'll get hold of the, like I said, I'll start with the city. And see what their process is and how much time, because I don't really know, what they typically would advertise for and how long it takes them to get the advertisement together. So, yeah, Carol and I can work that together. And since we have Carol here, this might be the appropriate time. We have not done any kind of press release or that type of thing. We started to, then I pulled that back to wait to today, so that you guys could do it. So I know Carol has prepared that. And I don't know if you want to read that to them, Carol, or just kind of give them a synopsis.
Yeah, let me open it up. It's been a minute since I've looked at it. Manitou Springs Chamber. There. Not chamber. There we go. 24. Gym retirement. Yeah, I can just read it really quick. All right. Longtime Manitou Springs Urban Renewal Authority Executive Director Jim Reese will retire at the end of 2024. Reese has served the MSURA since 2018. The MSURA is charged with leading the redevelopment and improvement of the urban renewal area, the area bounded by the Manitou Welcome Sign on the east through the intersection of Manitou Avenue and US 24 on the west end. During Reese's tenure, the MSURA completed significant milestones, including the completion of the West Side Avenue Action Project, Manitou Avenue Streetscape, acquisition and demolition of the blighted La Fun Motel for redevelopment to potentially include mixed use and attainable housing units. Additionally, Reese stewarded the partnership with the Creative Alliance of Manitou Springs, Crane, to acquire and place multiple art installations, including the Soaring Eagle, Spirit of Manitou, and Manitou Juniper and Wild Contemplation sculptures. Corridor improvements during his time with the MSURA include a bike ride station, pollination station, and the improvements on Becker's Lane, including the improved and renamed Mercy Morrison Bridge. We are so grateful to Jim for his stewardship and tenacious leadership that allowed us to make great headway to improving the urban overlay corridor, says Debbie Sagan, MSURA board chair. Jim has been instrumental in making connections between government and business to improve this district. Reese will continue to work with the MSURA through the end of 2024. This has been such meaningful and impactful work, says Reese. Manitou Springs is such a vibrant community, and the improvements we've made will continue to expand the possibilities for the urban overlay zone. The Manitou Springs Urban Renewal Authority Board will undertake a search for a new executive director in November. Interested candidates may direct inquiries to jwr520@gmail.com.
The only thing I would add is at the very opening. And I would say Jim's stepping down due to relocation. So there's a reason out there. If you want to say that, Jim. And when people go, oh, well, why did he quit?
Okay.
It answers that right out of the box.
Perfect.
Or
Yep.
did they fire him, you know? Maybe we fired you, Jim. I don't know.
Oh,
Well, Jim, what do you
it's really
prefer?
important to say.
Yeah, you want to say something like he wants to be closer to family. That's what everybody says, right?
Right? Yeah.
I would just say due to relocation.
Yep. That's exactly what I did. Is I just put that in the end of the first sentence.
My
you
only
like that, Jim?
additional comment is that there's no mention of a Holiday Inn Express, which I know is a controversial redevelopment project in the corridor, but still a really important one, and one that I think as the first project after the West Side Avenue project was completed, is an important one to note.
Okay. So just partnership funds for arts installations. Okay, corridor improvements during this time with the USA include a bike ride station, the new Holiday Inn Express, pollination, whoops, if I could spell, pollination station, the improvements on Becker's Lane. Okay.
We could talk about pot stores.
That's how we paid the bill.
Any other comments or questions for Carol about the announcement? Okay, so we can time that to go out when the position hits the street as well.
Yeah, I would say you just tell me when you want it to go. I am on vacation next week. So if you want it to go this week, let me know. And if you want it to go later, I'm back on the 18th. It's not the end of the world, but I'll be in Puerto Rico, so I probably will not be working.
And this is published
John,
where, Carol?
John, you're muted. I'm sorry, Barb. John, you're muted. So John first and then Barb.
There we go. I'd just as soon it go out this week.
Okay. I mean, if that's okay with you guys, I can push send here pretty quick.
I would agree with that. Barb, how about you?
Yeah,
You had
I
a
was gonna
comment?
say, I see no reason that it's tied to anything else to get the word out.
Okay.
As long as we know the process is happening soon.
Right.
Yeah, and I just have it saying that that people will contact Jim to apply. Is there another place for people to find out about the position or anything you want me to put in there about that?
I wouldn't send people to the city because I think
No.
that's just not, it's not feasible for them to answer questions because people get into the city 75 different ways. So I think this is the cleanest way to do it. And I bet we don't get many inquiries from this part.
Yeah,
From this announcement, it's more of a general, oh, well, maybe I should go look and see what they're doing next.
that makes sense. So I'll just have it go into Jim and I think that works great.
Okay. Anything else about this issue? All right. Board terms of office for 2025. We need to elect new officers for 2025. And I think, don't we do that at the January meeting? I think we do. But we need to have a slate of officers prepared for that January meeting. And I need to let you all know that my board term is up in December and I am not going to renew for another term. Like Jim, I need to go do other things. This has been a very wild and interesting ride, but not one that I'm going to continue. So that brings you down to 6 members. So you may want to be thinking about recruiting a new board member as well. And I mean, I'm happy to talk about who is showing interest in the community about URA matters, and you all likely know other people who may be interested in stepping up and serving on the board as well. But I do not intend to renew. At the moment, John is vice chair and Barb is secretary and Anne is treasurer. So you may want to wait to the December meeting to discuss further, but the way we've done this in the past, John would be stepping up to chair next year. And Barb or Anne would be typically either stepping into a vice chair role, or you'd be recruiting someone to do that role. So I'm just sort of laying out what's happened in the past, and I'll let you all sort of take it from there.
This,
And Jim, you've coordinated some of those conversations in the past, as I recall as well. But now even you're leaving. You won't even be here in January.
And just an FYI too, both Ann and John's terms expire in 2025.
Right.
That's right.
And just so you all know, I will miss the December meeting. I should be here for the January meeting. I'm somewhat reluctant to be chair, just because that I'm going to miss some other meetings in 2025. And to me, it's important for the chair to be around more than I anticipate being around.
Yeah, there has been a lot of business behind the scenes that I've worked on with Jim in between meetings. That's probably the bigger issue than actually chairing a meeting, because our meetings have not been controversial or difficult to facilitate or manage from that perspective. It's more the day-to-day stuff in between. Not that there's been a lot of it, but there are certain times when you gotta be around and able to answer questions. At least somebody from the officers team has. I mean, Anne's been a constant and wonderful presence in that respect, so that's been good. But we do need somebody who can sort of carry the water between meetings.
And that's my concern.
well, I would make a suggestion with John's comments that he consider being retained as vice chair, and that based on Anne's interest, that we put forth Anne or secondarily Farley as chair.
I would say Farley. I do not want to be chair. I want to stay as treasurer if at all possible. So I
So do
think
we-
Farley would be a good choice.
And I'm fine with being vice chair.
So that would be how I would kind of throw it out there. And then Anne is treasurer, although our notes say she's secretary. Our agenda. And it shows,
Yeah, this agenda still has the old officers. It has Alan Gregory as treasurer and Anne as secretary, but that is not correct.
right, so that was what I was confused about.
Right.
So, and Anne is expressing her interest to stay treasurer, and I'm happy to stay as secretary.
Yeah.
And I would say, especially with a new ED, keeping Anne in the treasurer role is really vitally important, because she's the one who knows how that engine just works. I wouldn't want to switch that up. I wouldn't want to be a new ED with a new treasurer and a new chair and a new, right? Like that seems like a lot. And I will tell you that I am around in the early part of the year. So bringing a new person on board, getting them settled in, explaining past decisions and the way things have worked, I am more than happy to do those things even after I leave, because I know there's going to be a transition process, and it is not my intent to leave anybody high and dry here. It's just that I don't want to re-up for another 4-year term.
So we probably need to be thinking about 1 or 2 people to add to the group.
Right.
Right. I think one. Yeah, for sure.
And hopefully we don't think of the same person or a same person that we'd want to consider for executive director. So in terms of value added, whatever the best route is.
Yeah.
For people you're thinking about. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, any other
Debbie-
comments or issues about?
Debbie, do you want
Questions?
to talk to Farley?
I'm happy to talk to Farley. Yes, I can do that.
Kind of get our ball rolling here.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay, moving on to the Park Row Lodge grant request. Jim, you want to give us an update about this? I know this was a possibility because we talked about it last month.
So, yeah, I have talked to the owner of that, and actually Young King, and I don't know why I sent her all the contact for this meeting, and I thought maybe she would be on, but I don't see her anywhere. And I don't know if anybody's, if she's trying to get in. I don't know if the clerk is paying attention to that or not. Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm here. Everybody who is visible on here, there's 7 of us, including myself, is present. There's nobody trying to get in right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay,
Thanks,
so
Elena.
we don't have her on here. Well, I'll just tell you what, I sent you out the information that she sent me. I did discuss this with her. The dilemma here is that she has filed an insurance claim to fix that little house. And she's run into some kind of legal issue with her insurance company. And so I think she's having to sue them. And she's afraid that given the timetable that Fred City Planning sent her, that she won't be able to comply because she won't have the money from the insurance company to fix this in time. And I believe that's next May is what her due date is. So she was interested in trying to apply and see if we would give her a grant to do all that work so that she could comply. So that's a dilemma for you guys. I don't know that, you want to do that. It almost sounds like it's a loan. And the grant's not set up to be a loan. So anyhow, I'm kind of perplexed myself as to how you want to handle this with her. And I'll just to kind of throw that out there. I don't know if you just want to say, come back at a later date, or I just don't know.
Okay. Comments or questions about the proposal?
Well, we're constrained by our facade improvement grant program to 25,000. I can't imagine that would be helpful. Even if we decided it was appropriate.
Her cost estimate, as you saw there, is kind of a little bit fuzzy too.
Yes.
She's saying it's going to be somewhere between 32.4 and 39.6, based on an estimation of either 21 working days or 30 working days to complete the work. So, I was very clear with her that the board would only fund half.
Mhm.
Well, I just don't believe we should be second or third party interference in this matter. For a property owner that has particularly insurance and litigation issues pending. I think it just muddies the water.
Yeah, I mean, if we were going to make a grant, I think we would simply make a grant. We're not going to get involved in paid, it's just a grant. So we would have to come to the conclusion, and I think you're right, it could only be half, that we would put up half of the cost because it meets our guidelines under our facade improvement program. And we could proceed that way. But I think that's the only way we could go forward.
When you think about it, we have never, in my term on the board, at least, we have never asked a property owner to describe their matching funds to us. This is the first time ever, because of the circumstance, that we understand where the match might come from. So from my perspective, the insurance claim is sort of a non-issue, right? And the litigation. The issue is she does have match. That's what she sort of proved to us, and in this way, in this unusual way. And so for me, the issue is, are there items on this list that we could actually fund? And there are outside facade improvements to be made. And so I think we can say yes to those outside facade improvements plus the labor required to get them done, whatever that looks like. And if Jim has determined that that's half, then I think it's a viable request.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very visible property in the URA.
Yes.
And I think having it boarded up and half burned is not attractive. So I agree that it's a valid request, and that, as you had described, Debbie, that's all. She needs to come up with the other half, though,
Yes.
before we will provide our half.
Well, I don't think we would, I think it would be more of a reimbursement if we saw that the work was done.
And that's it. They provide us an invoice, and that we provide
Yes.
half of the cost. Yeah.
That's exactly the way it works.
Because, well, I guess my other concern is this could set a precedent for other losses in the zone.
Well, especially the fact that, you know, I don't know, we don't have any idea how, if insurance will end up paying for all these costs.
And I don't think that's the issue at all, Jim.
Mm-mm.
Again,
It isn't.
I think she's made a valid request under our grant program. If it meets our criteria, we should approve the grant. And then she has to come up with the money, which she may not be able to do, to get the work done. And we would reimburse half, up to
Right.
25,000. I think that's all we deal with. And I
Yes.
think that's appropriate, and I would make that motion.
Well.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'd like some discussion first. I agree that the facade needs to be repaired. It's currently what I would consider blight, and so I would be inclined to go along with the grant. Here are my other issues. First of all, I'm not crazy about this use on this property. I would like to see a more intense use. Is it likely to happen? Probably not. If there were a more intense use on the main buildings in the Park Row Lodge, this could be parking, but I don't see that happening over time either. And then the other complication to me is Fred's letter. And I think that there is certainly some discussion as to how he has interpreted the non-conforming portion of the city code. I read the letter a couple times. He has the discretion to extend the May date for cause, and I think there is cause. Whether he does or not is another issue, but I don't know that 50% or more of the building has been destroyed. Certainly if it cost $40,000 to fix it, that tells me that not 50% is destroyed. So it's not even a non-conforming issue to me. So I think she has other avenues, is what I'm basically saying. Whether she understands those or not, is able to pursue them or not, I don't know. But I agree with Ann. This is blighted. We have an opportunity to fix it. We probably should fix it.
Yeah, and I would say, John, that while you raise valid issues, I don't think those are our issues. Again, I think we need to narrow our focus to what our program is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll second Ann's motion.
Jim,
Okay. I'm not clear as to what the motion is approving? Are we approving this full amount?
The
subject
motion is,
to
Jim,
showing-
I'll make that clear. The motion
Okay.
is to approve her request for a grant up to $25,000, but only half of, or to half of the project cost, but no more than $25,000. That's the motion.
Okay, I'm still confused. The, obviously, there's a lot of items on here that are not facade related. And I guess that's where I'm having issues. Is that your intent to fund those or not?
Yeah, and my intent is probably not to get in that level of detail, Jim. Is just to do what I suggested, approve the request for a grant up to 1/2 of the cost of the improvements, not to exceed $25,000.
And
And what I'm hearing Jim say is that perhaps modifying that motion to say to pay for the facade improvements, the outdoor related portions of the project so that we remain compliant with URA, with our own grant program.
Right, so
And-
maybe we ought to say just consistent with our grant guidelines. Yeah.
Because I'm coming up with about $4,500 in facade, actual facade improvements, paint, door, roof, gutter, things like that, plus the related labor costs. That's what the material cost that I'm seeing on the bid is about 4,500, but you know that the labor is the majority of that. So it could turn out to be upwards of 20 grand. Probably not, probably more like 12 to 15, but we don't know.
And I think our guidelines require that they submit detailed invoices so that we
Yes.
can tell.
Yes.
So I think as long as we say consistent with our facade improvement parameters or guidelines or whatever.
And Jim makes that clear to this property owner what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
He could provide her with a copy of our facade improvement program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she has that. I sent her all of
Okay.
them. So she's
Okay.
very much aware of what the criteria is. She just chose to give you the entire estimate that she got.
Right. So I would
Okay.
modify my motion to say consistent, that they would be reimbursed for expenditures consistent with our facade improvement guidelines.
And I'll second the modified motion.
Any other questions, discussion, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? No motion. Barb is opposed. Okay. 3-1. Barb, do you have any comments you want to make about that? Anything we could perhaps take care of in the implementation of this?
Well, I just think it sets a strange precedent that involves other legal matters that, you know, it's nice to create a new facade perhaps, but to John's comments, it doesn't really improve what that owner could be doing in that zone under our authority.
Yeah.
I just think we're kind of just throwing a little money at a visible problem, and that's about it. I don't think that's what we should be doing. I think she needs to remedy through her various avenues as described her claims and her planning department issues.
And I think that's her issue, not ours.
But
Okay.
So I guess the conclusion, I should probably write her a letter for Debbie's signature to say exactly what you just said. Try to explain this a little bit as to, you know, we're not here to replace your insurance, but we will grant you as per items that comply with our grant criteria.
Yeah, and we reimburse after the work is done with a
Right.
detailed invoice provided. Yeah.
Mhm. Up to 25.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you all. Jim, your report.
Okay, this is short and sweet. The been pretty much working on, getting this scope of services and job description for the executive director. So I've been working on that. Obviously, the Park Row thing, I've been communicating with them. And the budget with Ann and getting that ready for presentation to council. And that's pretty much most of the things I've been working on so far.
Any update from Paragon?
No, I've had no communications with them this month. I know they were going to submit a variance request, and I don't know where that is in the process. I think they submitted it. I have not heard anything from planning or any questions, so I'm assuming that's going through the process, and I believe it, Planning Commission in November is when it was supposed to be heard.
Okay, so
But I'll reach out to Rich just to see where they are in the process.
thank you. And if you could send us a follow-up note, because I know there are several of us who would want to attend that planning commission meeting where the variance is heard. That would be really great.
Well, the LaFawn property was posted, but I walked on the other side of the street looking at the Dillon property, which was also posted. So I didn't read the date. So my assumption is that the variance has been requested and the poster on the property lists the date. The poster on the Dillon property was for a planning commission meeting that had already occurred. And I've called planning department to try and find out about it, but they don't respond to me. So I don't get any feedback. When I call, the planner involved is never there and nobody else can apparently search the file. So I don't know what happened at Planning Commission. I was hoping Alan would say something. The request was for a temporary parking lot. I don't know what that means. Does that mean they don't have to pave it? They don't have to do any improvements? I don't know what it means. So I didn't get any answers.
That's an important update. Thank you, John. If we do have a posted date on the LaFun property, shouldn't that be noticed somewhere in the planning department about upcoming hearings? Maybe not. Maybe they don't publish their calendar that early.
I don't know. And like John, I have not gotten any notices for either the Dillon or LaFawn.
Yeah, I mean,
And I've asked specifically that they notify us. I've asked the parking folks and I've also asked the planning folks that they notify us when there's any activity in the URA, and it doesn't happen.
No.
Is that part of our MOU?
no.
Don't think so.
The MOU deals only with money. Really?
Yeah, I mean, if we were adjacent to the property, we would have probably received a letter.
Yeah.
But other
Yeah.
than that, it won't be posted till they post for the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Well, all right, we've got a couple of items to be paying attention to for this coming month. My expectation based on the last news from the Paragon team was that the November Planning Commission meeting would be the one where their variance was heard, but that assumes that they didn't run into any snafus with the planning staff, additional questions or documentation or whatever. Okay, any questions or comments for Jim about his report? All right, we don't have Nancy here. Because her prior meeting is downtown, my expectation is that she's still there and hasn't logged into the meeting for that reason. I haven't heard from her, Jim. I don't know if you did or not, but
No,
all right.
it's not. And I've included her on all the correspondence about this being a virtual meeting and
Yeah.
all that. So I have not heard anything from her.
Okay. My assumption is she's still tied up in her other meeting and has no access to a computer right now. Any other items of other business? Okay, then, the only other item that I have, I just want to say to you all, I really do think it would be helpful to have a rubric for evaluating our executive director candidates, so that each of us has something that we can, a way to evaluate those candidates based on the description that we've had, and we can be having a structured conversation when the time comes. I find that helpful. If the rest of you don't, then that's fine. I won't propose that we do anything, but if that would be helpful to you all, I would be more than happy to put together something that just outlines all the items in the job description, so that we can be sort of checking each application that we receive against the criteria in the job description. If that's not helpful to the rest of you, I won't waste the time on it. But if it is helpful to you, I'd be happy to do that. Hearing no comments, I'm going to pass on that.
Yeah.
Y'all know, you're all adults. You can get it done. We'll work on the job description, wait to see what the process looks like. My assumption is we're going to have to do some sort of special meeting to consider our candidates. And I'll work with Jim to get that ball rolling as well. And we'll be back after we understand what the timeline looks like, and let you know what the next steps are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Good.
With that, a motion to adjourn, please. Barb is moving.
Second.
Second from Ann first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks so much for your time. Happy Election Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.